when things started crumbling, my definition of God was subjected to a lot of tests that failed. And I wondered, if God is failing all these tests, then I don't think there's a God. The first test is, I wanted, how would I put it? I felt that if God was really working, that God would have worked in the life of my spouse. God would have worked in the lives of a lot of people I was seeing around me, some who were not giving me good experiences. I felt that God would have worked on them already. I felt that God would have worked on my mother, because I had a very horrible relationship with my mother for a long time. And I will have time to talk about. I felt that God should have worked on that shit. I felt that God should have worked on church people who are not just giving us the best experience being around them. I felt that the church should not have split if God was who He is. I felt that God should have stopped the split. God should have stopped the greed. God should have stopped the corruption. If God was real, then why was there so much evil in church? So I'm like, are you sure you're there? I'm not seeing you in the lives of everyone around me. And I think I'm the only one who gets it. So I kind of had that kind of egotistic conversation. And that really broke my heart, because I was like, then what is God doing? And I felt that if God was alive, then there would not be human suffering. If God was real, if God was there, if there was someone in the sky who created the heavens and the earth, and He made, and He has power to just wish things into existence, then I felt that He should have wished better circumstances for the children who were starving, for the children who were suffering from cancer, for people who are being taken advantage of helplessly. I feel that God should have wished them with His supernatural ability out of that kind of trouble. So I was like, who is this person in heaven who is just watching and presiding over a very messy human affair? How does He even get involved in politics? So I had that kind of testing for God. I tested God against so many moral questions, so many moral dilemmas. I tested God against the question of human suffering. I tested God about the question of change of the heart and transformation of human behavior. I tested God on so many questions. And because that's the impression I had of God, and that's the God I was testing, He failed. He failed. The God I had in mind failed all my tests. The God I believed in, the God I believed had magical powers to wish problems away, that God failed. The God I thought would be the kind of God who would shake my wife into being the kind of woman I was expecting her to be, and because I felt she was not giving me the best experiences, and I expected God to shake her out of that and to transform her and to present her to me like a better woman. That kind of God apparently does not exist. The kind of God who will force people to work with you. The kind of God who will force people to work with you. That kind of God does not exist. The kind of God who would allow you to ignore internal conflicts and just use His supernatural powers to give you false outward assurances based on false identities and false ideas about your personality, your ego, the meaning of life, all the shit you believe. A God who works so much on your shallow terms does not exist. And that's the kind of God I believed in. I believed that God should really have worked things my way if he was there. And when God failed those tests, I decided to break up with that God. The problem is I did not know any other God, because that's the kind of God I received from my mother. He was a God of judgment. He was a God of extreme judgment and disapproval. That's the kind of God I received from my evangelical experiences. He was a mean God. He was an indifferent God. He was a God who would just let bad people do bad things to good people and let them get away with it. That's the kind of God I knew. And it's the kind of God I grew up with in the Christian culture. And I didn't want to have that God anymore. I didn't want to have that God anymore. And I allowed myself to lose the idea of God, but it was yet a very dangerous decision. It was a very dangerous decision. I allowed myself to drop that God in totality. I'm not saying it was a bad decision. I'm not saying I shouldn't have made that decision. It's like skating on thin ice. It's a dangerous sport. And sometimes the ice can crack, and trying to swim out of that water, you don't know what your chances will look like. In my next episode, I want to talk about what God did with that, how dangerous it turned out to be, and what God did with it. Thank you for following this far. Let's have a word of prayer. Amen. I'm really grateful. If you stayed to the end, I'm really grateful that you did. It's encouraging if you watch this video. And like I said, this is just the beginning. Episode 3 is going to be much better. I believe it gets better, it gets richer, because God asked me to start small and then it's going to improve. So don't give up on me. Let's keep doing this. And I will also be talking to you about things that God is asking me to do, and how possibly you can support that, and how you can even support the production of this podcast. I would like to definitely be able to be more organized, be more effective, improve the quality, have good subtitles and have good scripting material, have better preparation. But here we are, and I'm sure God will take us there with your prayer and your support. Ciao.